The Galactic Council Chamber was built to intimidate gods. A hollow sphere of black crystal and floating light, it existed half in real space and half in a carefully regulated gravity well that made every movement feel ceremonial. Delegates hovered, slithered, perched, or stood according to species preference, each framed by holographic sigils denoting rank, voting weight, and military reach. The air vibrated softly with translation fields and the unspoken understanding that this room decided who lived, and who was quietly erased from the historical record. Humans were new here. Not freshly discovered new, that insult had already been survived, but new in the way a scar is new after it stops bleeding. Officially, humanity was classified as a regional power with developing interstellar infrastructure. Unofficially, they were tolerated because they were inconvenient to provoke and tedious to exterminate. Ambassador Elias Ward sat alone at the human table. No entourage. No honor guard. No floating banners of triumph. Just an older man in a dark coat that had seen more wars than most species had lifespans. His hair was steel gray, his face lined with the kind of wear that came from burying friends rather than collecting promotions. A single pin rested over his heart, a small blue and green circle that meant nothing to the galaxy. Earth. The council speaker manifested in the chamber's center, a vast, translucent entity whose form shifted between geometry and light. Its voice arrived in everyone's minds at once, perfectly calibrated. The emergency session is now in order. The matter before us, the Card Dominion's enforcement action in the Soul Frontier region and the subsequent objections filed by the Human Union. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. The Card delegation radiated confidence. Their admiral, encased in ceremonial warplate etched with conquest glyphs, stood proudly, mandibles clicking in a slow, satisfied rhythm. To the car, this was already over. A minor species had been corrected. The council was merely performing its ritual theater. Ambassador Ward, the speaker intoned, you may present your statement. Be brief. Ward didn't move right away. He stared at the chamber, at the layered shields and ancient symbols, at the species who had survived by learning which atrocities were acceptable and which were merely impolite. He inhaled slowly, the way soldiers do before stepping into fire. Then he stood. The scrape of his chair echoed far louder than physics allowed. I'll be brief, Ward said. The translation field stripped his voice of accent but not of weight. It carried the sound of restraint stretched thin. You attacked our home? The words landed badly. For a heartbeat, no one reacted. Then came the soft clicks of amusement, the rustle of wings, the low-frequency chuckle of something very large and very old. The car admiral laughed openly. Your home was an unregistered system, he said. Our patrols encountered unauthorized military buildup. Standard punitive action was taken. Ward turned his head slightly, eyes locking onto the admiral. 3 billion civilians, Ward said calmly. That was your standard. The laughter faded. The speaker pulsed with faint irritation. Ambassador, casualty figures are disputed. The Council recognizes the Card Dominion's right to. Ward raised a hand. The gesture was small. Human. Utterly out of place. Before you finish that sentence, he said, you should see what you're defending. He tapped the surface of the table. The chamber darkened. Every projection field, every delegate display, every private visual feed synchronized without permission. Human code slid through council systems that hadn't been updated in centuries, piggybacking on protocols no one remembered writing. The first image appeared. Earth. Whole. Blue. Alive. Then the sky burned. Car mass drivers punched through atmosphere like fallen gods. Cities vanished under kinetic shockwaves. The oceans blackened as self-replicating nanophages spread like oil slicks with intent. Emergency sirens wailed, their sound somehow bleeding through the visuals. The footage jumped. A hospital in Mumbai losing power, doctors switching to hand ventilation as gravity failed. A school shelter in Sao Paulo crushed when an orbital fragment punched through 12 levels of reinforced concrete. A father in a firefighter's jacket holding a child who wasn't breathing anymore, whispering promises he knew were lies. No music. No commentary. Just evidence. Several delegates looked away. Others couldn't. One avian representative vomited midair. The speaker's glow dimmed, flickering as if its own cognitive matrices were struggling. The feed ended on a single still frame, Earth from orbit, scarred and smoking, but stubbornly intact. The lights returned. Ward's hand was still resting on the table. "You didn't destroy us," he said quietly. "You failed to destroy us. That's the part you don't seem to understand." The Car Admiral's mandibles flared in irritation. "Sentiment," he snapped. "You present tragedy as if it changes strategic reality. Humanity lacks the fleet mass to—" "You're right," Ward interrupted. "We do." The Admiral paused. Ward leaned forward, his voice lowering. "We lack your numbers. Your ancient hulls. Your comfortable assumptions. What we don't lack is memory. Or patience. Or creativity under fire." The speaker attempted to reassert control. "Ambassador Ward, are you issuing a formal declaration of war?" Ward straightened. "No," he said. "I'm issuing a formal notification." He looked around the chamber, meeting alien eyes, compound lenses, psychic presences that brushed against his mind and recoiled from what they found there. "The war started when you bombed our home," Ward continued. "It continues whether you vote on it or not. And it ends when we decide it ends." A murmur spread, fear this time, not amusement. The Car Admiral bared his teeth. "You threaten the Council itself?" Ward smiled. It wasn't triumphant. It was tired. Sad. Dangerous. "No," he said. "I'm explaining consequences." He turned, already gathering his data slate. "By the time this session adjourns," Ward added over his shoulder, "your border fleets will be blind, your logistics chains will be compromised, and several species you've been protecting will remember they hate you." The speaker's light flared sharply. "This is impossible." Ward paused at the edge of the chamber. "Gentle beings of the Council," he said softly, "humans specialize in impossible things. We had to. Our planet trained us that way." He looked back once more, eyes cold as vacuum. "You attacked our home," he repeated. "Now we're going to show you what that means." And for the first time since the Council was founded, no one spoke as a human walked away, because somewhere deep in their ancient instincts, they all understood the same terrible truth. This was not a plea. This was the opening move. The first human counterstrike didn't come with trumpets or fanfare. It came silently. While the Council argued semantics and procedural delays, fleets that had once been invisible, dismissed, or ignored began disappearing. Human ships did not announce themselves. They didn't conform to expected military patterns. Smugglers, prospectors, ex-soldiers, people the galaxy had written off, went dark in systems considered secure. Navigation beacons blinked out. Entire relay networks vanished. Communication channels sputtered, then went dead. The Car Dominion laughed at first. Small systems? Insignificant trade routes? Humans couldn't possibly be organized. They were slow, backward, and clumsy by galactic standards. Until the first reports came in. A Car border fleet, stationed near the Sable Drift, vanished in under 3 minutes. Survivors, if they could even be called that, described scenes so horrifying that veteran officers dismissed them as hallucinations, ships entering from subspace at suicidal angles, dumping every ounce of energy into ancient railguns that had long been considered obsolete. When their ammunition ran out, the humans rammed them. When their ships were destroyed, boarding pods emerged from the wreckage, soldiers dropping like shadows into corridors, knives in hand, laughter on open comms. The transmissions were chilling. "Welcome to Earth," one squadron broadcasted. "We brought gifts." The Council scrambled to interpret the strategy, but there was none in the conventional sense. Humans were not fighting a war, they were rewriting the rules of engagement. They were infesting fleets like a virus, improvising with terrifying ingenuity, combining outdated hardware with lethal precision. Every surprise the car Dominion expected had already been surpassed by 10 others. And then came the paperwork. Human diplomats filed claims across the galaxy. Entirely legal. Perfectly formatted. Each one citing centuries of violations, treaties broken, colonies displaced, lives stolen. It was bureaucratic warfare at a scale that would have made most council species weep in frustration. The galaxy's own systems of justice, archaic, cumbersome, and designed for deliberation, were turned into weapons. The car Dominion watched as its holdings froze under legal injunctions. Allies withdrew discreetly, suddenly discovering ancient grievances against the Dominion. Every claim was airtight. Every precedent cited. Every motion processed faster than a plasma cannon could fire. Lieutenant Marichin stood beside Ward in a dimly lit forward base carved into a hollowed asteroid. Reports rolled across their holotable in a chaotic cascade of light and data. "They're calling it the paper guillotine," she said, exasperated yet awed. Ward snorted. "We prefer due process." Chen hesitated, then ventured. "Sir, why put an old man in front of the council when the galaxy already knows humans are deadly?" Ward's gaze lingered on the hollow of Earth, scarred but breathing, resilient despite everything. "Because they needed someone they could underestimate," he said. "And because I already buried my family once. I don't have anything left they can take." The base shuddered as another jump signature flared outside the observation window. A car flagship, the Imperious Will, had entered the system. Chen's voice was barely above a whisper. "Sir, they're here." Ward smiled, a thin, weary line that didn't reach his eyes. "Good. I hate loose ends." Every human maneuver was a mix of poetry and terror. They used strategy the galaxy didn't understand, exploiting both weaknesses in technology and weaknesses in expectation. Fleets that had believed themselves untouchable were decimated not just by firepower, but by ingenuity. Boarding pods rolled into the dark like living shadows. Engineers hacked through secured systems with nothing but a pocket device and a memory of war. Every operation was part military action, part psychological torment, part impossible art. And through it all, Ward's calm voice guided them. He didn't yell. He didn't rattle sabers. He didn't make speeches meant to inspire. Humans had something the galaxy often underestimated: patience and an instinct for the absurdly cruel efficiency of delayed vengeance. They understood that a car admiral's confidence, a council vote, a supposedly secure planet, could all be shattered in ways that left survivors questioning reality. Chen finally asked the question that had been pressing all along. "Sir, when it comes down to it, what is our endgame?" Ward turned to her, eyes sharp as broken glass. "Endgame?" he said quietly. "The galaxy already knows the answer. Humanity survives. And anyone foolish enough to attack us learns what that costs. Every single time." Outside, the Imperious Will's engines flared, igniting the void. The galaxy's most feared warship had no idea that it was about to become the first domino in a chain reaction that no one, not even the Council, would ever forget. And in that cold, silent space, humans waited. Not for permission. Not for luck. They waited for the moment when fear became the only language the galaxy understood. Because humanity didn't negotiate. Humanity didn't beg. Humanity remembered. And they had a very, very long memory. The Imperious Will was a fortress in motion, a warship so vast it could house a small planet's population, bristling with weapons that could shred moons. The car admiral believed himself untouchable, his fleet's tactical doctrine flawless. They had never imagined the humans would strike so boldly, so directly, or so unreasonably. The human plan was simple, terrifying, and utterly human. A single, civilian, freighter drifted toward the flagship, engine lights dim, thrusters failing. Car point defense systems hesitated. Protocols forbade attacking what appeared to be a non-military vessel, even if it entered restricted zones. That hesitation was all the humans needed. The freighter detonated, internally directed, focused. It wasn't a blast meant to destroy the hull outwardly. It was a scalpel, ripping open a narrow channel directly into the dorsal armor of the flagship. The breach was precise enough to allow drop pods to slip through in the resulting shockwave. Human Marines didn't storm the corridors, they infested them. Magnetic boots clicked against metal floors, knives and short firearms slashing silently. Old Earth songs played through hacked comms, a psychological torment layered over every kill. One squad even transmitted laughter from pre-war sitcoms, echoing down corridors as officers fell, bewildered and panicked. In the flagship's command spire, the Car Admiral attempted to coordinate a response. His hololink sparked to life, projecting Ward's face across the bridge. "You are animals," the Admiral hissed. "This war will consume you." Ward leaned close to the projection, voice low and deadly calm. "We're counting on it," he said. "We've been consuming wars for 10,000 years." The Admiral's mandibles flared in disgust. "Then die with your world." Ward's eyes were flat, empty, and full of memory. "You already tried," he replied. He cut the link. In the next seconds, the flagship's reactors began to fail, not from damage alone, but because humans had found a port overlooked during a Council-approved inspection decades earlier. Maintenance access had been exploited with surgical precision, code inserted quietly over years of patient observation. The Imperious Will's internal systems collapsed. Explosions were minimal. There was no chaos. Just quiet, inescapable, inevitable implosion. Across the galaxy, car fleets froze. Communications with command centers failed. Reports came in piecemeal, supply lines shredded, orbital defenses collapsing, colonies abandoned not by policy but by panic. Their empire had been methodically dismantled by something they didn't understand. And still, Ward's message continued to spread, carried not by fleets but by fear, by the unmistakable human signature stamped on every act, unpredictable, relentless, intelligent. Lieutenant Marichin watched the news feeds, a mixture of awe and disbelief plastered across her face. "Sir, it's happening everywhere. They're pulling back. They're afraid." Ward leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped. "Good. Let them be afraid. The galaxy always forgets what fear feels like. We're here to remind them." Another message came in, a car cruiser, surrendered without a fight. Its captain cited unexplainable human ingenuity and cruelty as justification. Ward didn't smile. He simply nodded. "We warned them," he said quietly. "We gave them a chance to stop. But they didn't. They thought humans were manageable, predictable, polite, weak." Chin shook her head. "They underestimated us." Ward looked at her, steel behind the sadness in his eyes. "They didn't underestimate us," he said. "They made a mistake. And mistakes are very expensive." Outside, the void was calm again, but the shadow of humanity had stretched across the stars. Every planet touched by car dominance now carried the memory of what happens when the humans retaliate. It wasn't mercy. It wasn't justice. It was consequence, and the galaxy had finally understood that humanity specialized in it. The war was far from over, but the Imperious Will's fall marked a turning point. One by one, systems realigned. Allies reconsidered old grievances. Every strategy that had assumed humans were predictable or weak collapsed under the weight of their creativity and brutality. Ward's hollow eye scanned reports from the front lines, the rear, and everywhere in between. "We're not just fighting them," he said. "We're teaching the galaxy something about memory, patience, and the cost of a single mistake." And somewhere deep in the void, the humans waited, patient as shadows, ready to strike again. Because humanity didn't negotiate with those who had bombed their home. Humanity didn't beg. Humanity remembered. And vengeance, they knew, was never blind. Months later, the Galactic Council reconvened. The chamber, once vast and imposing, felt smaller. Empty seats marked client states that had been erased or liberated, their delegates gone or replaced by those who owed allegiance to no one but themselves. Even the speaker's luminous presence flickered unevenly, as if aware that the rules of authority had shifted overnight. Ambassador Elias Ward stood again. No entourage, no ceremonial gestures, just a man whose presence carried the weight of entire worlds. Silence fell immediately, no laughter, no amusement, no polite murmurs. Fear had replaced all of it. "You attacked our home," Ward said, his voice low but carrying to every corner of the chamber. "And we demonstrated exactly what that means." The speaker's glow dimmed. What does humanity seek now?" Ward's eyes swept the room, scanning each delegate, each creature that had once underestimated them. "Peace," he said. "The real kind. Not the kind written in treaties or codified in rituals, but the kind built on consequences. On memory. On respect." A murmur ran through the delegates, the kind born of disbelief. Ward allowed a thin smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. He turned to leave, then paused. All heads turned toward him, every eye, compound, luminescent, or crystalline, focused. "Oh," he added casually, "one more thing." The chamber leaned in instinctively. "If any of you are still wondering whether humans overreacted, whether we went too far, remember this." Ward tapped his chest, over the small earth pin. "We didn't come to rule the galaxy. We came to make sure it never forgets what happens when you bomb someone's home, and they survive." The chamber remained silent long after the human delegation departed. The air was heavy with a new understanding, that humanity did not negotiate out of fear, did not surrender out of logic, and did not retreat out of courtesy. For the first time in galactic history, peace was maintained not by fleets, laws, or authority, but by fear, a quiet, persistent certainty that somewhere, humans were watching. Scarred, patient, and impossible to kill. Somewhere out there, Ambassador Ward smiled quietly as he walked back to the waiting ship. The galaxy had learned an unthinkable lesson: humans survived. Humans remembered. And the cost of underestimating them could never, ever be measured in numbers alone. Because humanity, once pushed, was capable of things the Council had only ever feared in stories. And stories, Ward knew, always outlived the liars.